They're some of the people who suffered the most from the threat of COVID and the isolation it's caused. But now residents in aged care homes can finally look forward to seeing their loved ones again. A limited number of fully vaccinated people will be allowed to visit when lockdown ends in under 2 weeks.
It's a thumbs up for Nanette Smith.
From the 11th of October, aged care residents are able to welcome visitors, 2 fully vaccinated visitors per day.
When lockdown began more than 3 months ago, the 80-year-old was only able to see her husband, who's also her carer.
You miss me? Eh?
No.
I just like you to comb me. I'm here with you, darling. I love you, darling.
In less than 2 weeks, she'll be able to see her 3 daughters.
Really excited and just really grateful that Mum can get to see us again and we get to see her.
Unlike some other aged care residents, Ms Smith suffers from Alzheimer's disease, so video calls haven't been an option.
People with Alzheimer's can't see colour or context very well, so it's actually even more confusing and it gets her quite agitated and upset.
Vaccination is the only way, and for healthcare workers too. More than 97% are expected to have had their first dose by tomorrow. Any who choose not to, and
there won't be a position available for them in New South Wales Health. It's pretty simple.
New South Wales recorded its highest death rate from the virus since the pandemic began. 7 women and 8 men, all over the age of 40. 9 were unvaccinated. There were 836 new infections. As businesses prepare to open, a warning about vaccinations from the Premier.
Anybody who flagrantly disregards the health orders will be penalised. I want to make that very clear.
My staff have been vaccinated, but with the clients, they'll find it very offensive even asking them this question. That's a personal thing to them.
When the state begins to open up next month, the definition of a close contact is likely to change. If you're fully vaccinated, it's unlikely you'll have to self-isolate for 14 days if you come in contact with a positive case. But the rules remain for those who become infected.
The key message is that if you are a case and you have COVID, you will be required to isolate for 14 days.
An incident the Smith family hopes won't happen.
To have a hug from her would be awesome.
Because love is the missing medicine for many. Mark Reddy, ABC News, Sydney.
Tonight we can report some good news for parents and students. School will resume a week earlier than planned. The staggered return to class was due to begin on the 25th of October, but Crisis Cabinet has just approved the change. So parents, mark your calendars for October the 18th.
The last 3 months of remote learning have been no picnic for many families who say the return to face-to-face education can't come soon enough.
Online teaching, they're not learning anything from it. They're sitting, eating, and that's it. I want them to go back to school.
I'm really excited for the kids to return to school. They are so ready for it. I feel very comfortable about their safety.
Students were due to start returning to class on October 25, but there was pressure to bring the date forward since many parents will go back to work at the end of lockdown on October 11. The Premier flagged a change this morning.
At this stage, parents should still plan for the 25th, but we are looking at options there if we can bring things forward.
And tonight, Crisis Cabinet signed off on a plan to bring the staggered start forward by a week, with kindergarten and years 1 and 12 the first to return on October 18.
As you appreciate, our school system in New South Wales is huge. We have to look at the teachers that are vaccinated, we have to look at the staged return. There's a lot to consider.
There are also parents who still have reservations about taking the plunge.
I'm looking forward to it also, but I am a bit worried because the kids are not yet vaccinated.
With community transmission of COVID still high, school outbreaks are likely to be frequent.
It will get into schools. There will be many, many children who become infected.
The Premier concedes education will continue to be disrupted.
Does it mean the whole school shut down or just a year? So we're going through all those processes now.
Many private schools are buying air purifiers and some are already trialling rapid antigen tests. The government hasn't committed to either for public schools, and it raises the question of whether students at some schools are safer than others.
I think that that's possible, and that's a pretty confronting to think that our children in public schools won't be sufficiently protected.
Regardless of the date, there's a lot riding on the return to school. Sarah Geraghty, ABC News, Sydney.
Thousands of people have just been forced back into lockdown in one part of regional New South Wales. The Oberon local government area near Bathurst is now under stay-at-home orders for a week. Health authorities say there's a greater risk of a COVID outbreak there. But so far, Byron Bay has managed to avoid a snap return to lockdown after 2 confirmed cases.
Bowls are back in Bangalow. Lockdown was lifted in the Byron Shire last night. Cheers. But with more cases already discovered in the area, no one knows when this game will be up.
I think we're all a bit on the edge of our seat. We're not sure what's happening.
Anissa Anton's feeling deflated after Port Macquarie was plunged into lockdown yesterday. Her business only reopened a week ago.
We've just sort of been closed for the last 6 months due to the devastating floods that happened March 19th.
The tale of these 2 towns could be the state's reality until it reaches its first vaccination target.
Please make sure you get yourself vaccinated if you haven't already, because you could very well go backwards from the 11th of October.
Byron has the lowest inoculation rate in New South Wales. Fewer than 40% of locals have had both shots. The Mayor says they're not to blame.
Through no fault of our own, we're going to be opened up to travel from outside, but we're not able to participate broadly in society simply because we haven't been given the access to vaccines.
A quarter of today's cases are outside Sydney. The Illawarra is still the worst affected region. 94 new infections have been uncovered.
I think that emphasises the need to be very cautious through the Illawarra, Shoalhaven.
Authorities are also worried about a truck driver from Queensland who's tested positive.
So he's obviously been in Tweed Heads, Byron Bay, Ballina, Coffs Harbour, Kempsey, Port Macquarie, Taree, Newcastle, Erina and Sydney. And in Sydney he's been in a few places as well. He's been in Narrabeen, Collaroy, Manly, Freshwater, Brookvale.
Byron Bay has so far avoided another lockdown, surprising some residents. But on the Central Tablelands, everyone in the Oberon Council has been ordered to stay at home for another week. With the virus spreading across the state, other areas could soon be joining them. Leah White, ABC News.
With all this talk about reopening, let's take a look at how the vaccine race is tracking. In New South Wales, almost 63% of people aged over 16 are now fully vaccinated, and the state is on track to hit 90% with 1 dose next week. Nationally, the double dose figure is lower at around 53.5%.